Hi, welcome to this session on Chef Fundamentals. Let's wait another 2 more minutes for others to join in. Let's start our session. So, in today's session, we are going to deal with Chef Fundamentals. I am Anjum Dominic, Principal Consultant of Quadralogics. In this session, I will be dealing with what is chef, and we will do simple hands-on examples with chef code. So let's start our discussion. Let's go back to 10-15 years backwards. So then assume that we are working on an organization. So then we did not have such a large scale infrastructure to work with. Excuse me. Most of the organizations used to work with 10 to 15 servers to the max. And whenever a new application needed to be deployed on all these servers, we usually call system admins. Excuse me. System admins come and deploy these applications manually to all these servers. So long back, what we used to do is manual configurations for your applications. What you do is manual configurations of your application. But there were so many disadvantages to perform manual configurations. First thing is, you have to always remember that to error is human, that proverb. So whenever you do something manually, there is always chances to have defects. And these defects, when it comes to infrastructure, it is going to affect us very badly. There is a very good examples that you can find from the history. That is, we had a Knights Capital. We still have that firm. There is a US brokerage firm called as Knights Capital. It was one of the top most electronic trading company in the New York Stock Exchange. It was handling almost 75% of electronic trading in New York Stock Exchange. So they relied on 8 servers for managing all their stock related actions. So they wanted to add a new feature to their application. So the new code was ready, and this new code needs to be deployed in this 8 servers that is used to manage all the stock related actions of Knights Capital. So system admins were called in, and they started the deployment of the new code in all these 8 servers. Deployment went very well. It almost all the 7 servers, all the deployment was successful. But in the 8th server, they had some defects. Actually, the deployment was not successful. But that failed deployment went unnoticed by the system admins because Knights Capital did not have a well documented process to follow for all the deployments. Neither did it have a person to verify the deployment. As a result, the failed deployment went unnoticed. As a result of which, they started getting erroneous trading requests, and Knights Capital, which was once the top most electronic trading company in the New York Stock Exchange, lost around 450 billion US dollars in less than half an hour. Mainly because one of the deployment or manual deployment, I'll use that word, manual deployment in one of the servers did not go very well, or we had a failed deployment. So that is the after effect of having a deployment failure in the real life scenario. So the manual configurations is not good to follow. We always get errors, and it is very difficult to manage with. So the people thought of other methods which are much better than the manual configurations. So let's take you again, just fast forward 5 years. So then people started using shell scripts. People started using shell scripts for infrastructure configurations. So now what we are dealing with is a much more bigger infrastructure, bigger scale of infrastructure. Each company would rely upon 100 servers or 120 servers, etc. And it is difficult for system admins to go to each server and deploy the new application. So they started using shell script for deploying the applications and configuring the infrastructure. In my previous experience, when I first joined the industry, I was working for a mobile network operator. So there we used to have shell scripts that used to manage our deployment of our applications to the production environment. But from my experience, I would tell you that it is not a good solution at all. Because in my experience, when we were using shell scripts, we started getting lot of production issues related to the configurations. And these issues were very difficult to debug and analyze. That was mainly because shell scripts did not have any debugging tool to do that. That is the first reason. And another reason is that whenever we are using shell scripts in a complex environment, scripts itself becomes very complex in nature. And you know how shell scripts are. Even a small defect, or even if you forget to add a space, or even if you forget to add a semicolon, it causes some confused error messages, or it gives you some confused error messages which is difficult to understand. We will not be able to understand it is just because of this semicolon or a space. We will spend many hours debugging this defect, but it will be small things like space or a semicolon. So our life became very hectic. We never used to leave early from the office. We started spending all our weekends in office, trying to debug and analyze these production issues. And these are production issues. So these production issues need to be handled immediately, otherwise you will have escalations and it can even affect your job. So that we were on a tense situation. We have to work like after the office hours also. So life became very miserable when we were using shell scripts. And one important feature or one important defect with shell script was that if you repeat running the shell script twice or thrice or 4 times, it gives different outputs. Say for example, you have a hello.txt file, or just say file1.txt file. You have file1.txt. You need to delete this file.txt. So I'm going to write a shell script, and it will have only a single command, rm file.txt. That is the shell script that I am going to run, which will delete the file1.txt from my path. Assume that I ran this for the first time. It worked very well. It deleted the file1.txt. Now we don't have the file.txt file in our path. But when you run the same script second time, what happens? It throws us an error saying that file.txt is not present. Understand the difference. The same script, you're running it twice. First, the file got deleted. We do not have any error messages. But in the second run, we started getting a message. It's not an error message actually. We started getting a message telling that the file.txt is not present. So that is the 2 different ways of running the shell script, or it giving 2 different outputs. That is not what we want. We want our shell scripts to run consistently. So we need to include a new feature into the shell script known as idempotence. Idempotence is the feature that helps us to run the script how much ever time you want, yet giving the same output. So how to make this script idempotent? So you can use the if function to do that. That is, if you have a file, say -f, I think, if you have the file.txt, then what do you do? Then delete the file. So if you add this, what is the difference you can see? If you add this if option to the script, it will tell us that if the file is present, delete the file, otherwise do nothing. So when you run this 2 times or 3 times or 4 times, it gives the same output. So that is how we include idempotence in shell script. But now it's very easy to include idempotence in shell script. It's just another line of code. But assume that your shell script is very complex in nature. You are dealing with bigger things, not just files. You are dealing something bigger or something more complex. Then to include idempotence in shell scripts is going to be difficult. So these are the main disadvantages that we had while using shell scripts. I will just repeat it. That is, shell scripts used to be very complex in nature. It is difficult to debug and analyze. It took large amount of time to debug the script issues, and we don't have the idempotency feature inbuilt into our shell scripts. We have to include the idempotency feature purposefully into shell scripts. So people were not happy with manual configurations, people were not happy with shell scripts. So now they started having a new practice from the DevOps community known as infrastructure as code. This is infrastructure as code. So what is infrastructure as code? This is basically how the application side of the infrastructure is managed through code. All the provisioning and managing of all the infrastructure for your application is now done through code by abstracting into a high level programming language. So everything is coded now. If you want to bring a server to deploy your application, that is coded. If you want to configure a configuration file, that is also coded. So everything is now in codes, or everything is abstracted into the form of code. So how this will help to avoid all these previous problems? So if you have the entire infrastructure in a code form, that means you are having a consistent, reliable environment for your application. So wherever you run this code, you get the consistent output. So the application environment is now consistent, and we can rely on that fully. Another important feature that help us, or that is an added advantage for using infrastructure as a code, is that all the features that are applicable to the application code can now be applied to the infrastructure as well, like versioning, tracking, storing in the storage repository. All these things could be done with the infrastructure as well. So that is the main purpose of the infrastructure as a code. So infrastructure as a code gives us a consistent, reliable environment which is mostly error-free, and also we can version, track and store the details about the infrastructure in the repository. And this infrastructure as a code also work as a documentation for how to configuring and deploy the applications in the infrastructure, in various infrastructure. So there are many tools that are available in the market that help us to achieve infrastructure as a code. I will just list some of them. First, as you know, is Chef. Then you have Ansible. Then you have Puppet. Then you have SaltStack, etc. These are the common things, but you have some extra things also. These are the main tools that help us to achieve infrastructure as a code. So in this session, we will be dealing with Chef mainly. So Chef is also known as configuration management tool. If you go and check for the definitions of Chef, you would always find that it's a configuration management tool. What is a configuration management? Let's take an example. You need to deploy an application written in MeanStack. MeanStack is a combination of Node.js, MongoDB, etc., Express, etc. So you need to deploy an application in MeanStack to say 5 servers. So what do? First you install all the application and all these servers and deploy. So we do that in infrastructure as a code way now. Previously we were doing with configuration, manual configurations and shell scripting. So assume that we are still using shell scripting. So we have deployed we have installed all the relevant tools for the main stack application. Now we have deployed our application. It was all working fine. But now there is an update for say MongoDB or Angular tool, Angular this language. So you need to update that. So you will use the shell script to update our installs. So it is updated. Now again I run the application, but it is throwing us some error. My application is not working as expected with the new version of the installs. So I need to revert back or roll back to the previous version. It is difficult for me because it is very time consuming, and also I don't have a written documentation about the configuration of the systems or the state of the configuration of the system before. So we thought of a configuration management tools that help us to manage these changes in the configurations. So Chef is one of the tools that help us for the configuration management. Now why Chef is a preferred one in this infrastructure as a code field? That is mainly because Chef can be used to work with large scale infrastructure, and also it is written in a development point of view based on a Ruby domain specific language. And compared to other systems, one main disadvantage of having Chef is that it is having a larger learning curve or a steep learning curve. It is much more complex to get a grab on compared to other infrastructure as a code tools, but it could be used for large complex applications or large complex infrastructure. It manages very well the bigger infrastructures compared to other infrastructure as a code tools. So now we understood what is infrastructure as a code and why we choose Chef. Now let's try to do some hands-on with Chef code. So before that, I need to install Chef in my I'm using an AWS instance, so I need to install Chef in my AWS EC2 instance. So let's do that. Let's go to our terminal. So if I go to the AWS management console, I'm going to launch a new instance where I will be installing my Chef. So I'm using the free tier Ubuntu system, that is 18.04. I am selecting that instance and I'm using general purpose T2 micro type system. So again a number of instances that I want is 1. Don't worry too much about other details. So now I want one instance of my cloud running, so I will take 1, and I have the storage details here, then security fine. Now I'm going to launch the application. So here I can use any existing key pair. I have an existing key pair called as Chef AWS. If you don't have an existing key pair, you can very well create a key pair and download it to your system and use it like I use the existing key pair. So here I'm using Chef AWS. I'm going to launch the instance. Now let's go to the terminal. I'll just increase the font size. So here I'm going to go to the path where I have my key stored. So I have it in I think Chef AWS ls. So I have the .pem file here. So this is from here I'm going to connect it to the AWS instance. So I will view this instance here, and I think it did not launch. Yes, it launched actually. So this is initializing, so I will name it as chef workstation. Chef workstation. So workstation is a place where we actually develop our infrastructure code. For the time being, just understand that it is the place where you develop your infrastructure code, and all the details would be there in Chef workstation, and we need to install Chef DK in Chef workstation. So here this is the Chef workstation. Now connect. So this is the command to connect to the Chef AWS workstation. So I will just this is the first time, so it will be asked. So okay, now clear. So now we have logged into our AWS instance. So here is where I am going to install my Chef. So let's go to download chef.io URL. So this is where you will find all the downloads for your Chef workstation. So I go here to the Chef workstation. You can find you have installed for Mac OS, Ubuntu, Windows, etc. I'm using Ubuntu, so I'll go to Ubuntu, and this is the URL where I need to download my Chef development kit. So I will just copy this one and go to the terminal and use the wget. So before that, let me update the apt-get package. So I will just update the apt-get package. It will take some time to update the apt-get package in the new AWS instance. Okay, now I'll just clear it, and now I'm going to get the package Chef DK package from the URL. So I use wget. So now if you go and check, you will be able to find the Chef workstation package available. Now in the GitHub I have all the steps that I need to run. So now I need to unzip the package. So sudo dpkg -i interactive way, and give the name this one. It will take some time to unpack. Let's wait for that to unpack. So now in Chef workstation it's installed. Now we need to set the path. Like first you have to see what is the Ruby that it is using. Chef uses Ruby domain specific language, so it is path is not rightly set. So I will set the path for the Ruby. If you want to know more details about how you configure, you can go to Chef documents and find the way to give the path. So this is the path where I will find my Ruby. So I'm going to update it into my bash profile, and then so everything is done. Now let me just give which Ruby. So here, so the path for the Ruby is set. Now all the configurations that we have done for the Chef is correct. Now if I give chef -- version, I think I'll be able to see the workstation version for the Chef that we have installed. All the details you will see. So the Chef is installed correctly in our cloud AWS instance. Now what is the next step that you can do? So now I'm going to write a hands-on example to work with the chef code. So my first example would be to create a hello.txt file in my temp path, and if you cat into that file, I would be able to see the content as hello world. So if I go to cd/temp and give ls, you will find that there is no files called hello.txt. So our requirement is to create a file hello.txt with the content as hello world. So let's go back. I'm going to create a directory as chef examples. Sorry, I have to give sudo chef examples, and now cd chef. I'm going inside the chef examples directory. Now I'm going to use Vim editor. You can use any editor of your choice. I'm more comfortable with Vim editor, so I'll be using Vim editor, and I'm going to create a file called demofile.rb. that will be where my infrastructure code written in the chef code will be. So here I don't have the Vim installed, so let me just install Vim. apt-get install Vim. So it will take some time to install it. So it is again asking yes. I'll give yes to continue with the installation. So now it's done. Now let me just again create the demo file.rb. So here I'm going to create a file in the temp path as hello.txt, and I'm going to so we will revisit these details later. After finishing this coding example, we will come back to the syntaxes later. So here just understand that this will create a file hello.txt file with the content as hello world /m/n end. So let me just run this code. Sorry, I had to do it with the sudo keyword. So sudo vim demo file.rb. So again I will insert file /temp hello.txt do content hello world and wq. I'll save this one. Now I am going to use chef apply utility to run this infrastructure code. Chef apply demo file.rb. It will take some time. Let me see. So first time when you're running, it will ask you to accept the product license. You can very well go that this is not a paid license or anything like that. You can just give yes, and then it will create the hello world. So let me go to the temp file. Let me go to the temp file and give hello dot. So now we have the, again I'll clear it and show you the, so here we have the hello.txt file, and if I go to hello.txt file, you will be able to see that you have hello world written inside the file. So our requirement is satisfied. We created a hello.txt file in the particular path and then with the particular content. So this is a simple example, but in real life it could be something more different. It could be not a text file, it could be a configuration file, it could be another like you need to create a server or another services or package or etc. So now let's go back to the file, that is demo file.rb file. .rb, that means it is a Ruby extension. Since Chef uses Ruby domain specific language, we have the extension .rb for all the files that we create. So we cd to chef examples and then cat demo file. So here, what are the things that we have specified here? This file is nothing but a resource in the chef scenario. Resources are the basic building blocks while writing the chef code. It could be the single element of a system. It could be anything like a file or a package or a service, etc. So these are the basic building blocks in the chef code. So the main syntax of this take a file resource would be the resource type, which is the file, name of the resource. You can either give the name of the resource or the name with the path, and then in the do is the actually the starting of a block for the file resource, and content is the attribute of the file resource, or I would rather say it's one of the property of the file resource. So content is the content that we have in that particular file. It could be other properties like mode. Mode will be the permissions that are there for this file resource. So you can give mode also here. And this end is the end of the block for the file resource. So now multiple resource, or you have a single resource, or all the details, all the steps for doing a particular requirement in the chef code would be kept in a .rb file, and that rb file is called as recipe. Recipe is a collection of resources, or this is the actual step-by-step instruction for the infrastructure requirement, or the place where you write the infrastructure code is known as the recipe. So demo file.rb file is the recipe file, and inside that you will have the resources. You can have a single resource or a multiple resource, and then you have a multiple recipes put together. You will have something called cookbook. So resources are the starting building block. Combination of resources could be a recipe file. Combination of a recipe file could be a cookbook. So recipe is the the basic file with the infrastructure code. Collection of recipe is known as cookbook. So now this is the typical simple hands-on example with chef code. So now we have run the chef code with chef apply utility. But in the real life it would not be so simple. But in most of the cases, you chef follow an architecture, a client server architecture. So in this session we won't be going much into the details of the client server architecture. Just understand that in the real life scenario you will have the workstation here. So this is the workstation that we have created just now. So workstation is the place where you will have your development of the code happens, development of the infrastructure code happens. Then you will have something called chef server. So when cookbooks are created in the workstation, it gets uploaded into the chef server, and from the chef server it would be given to chef clients, or I would rather say the nodes where the chef infrastructure code needs to be run. This is node 1, this is node 2, and this is node 3. You can have multiple nodes as well. So this is the basic architecture of Chef. You will have a workstation, the place where you develop the infrastructure code. You will update after development, or the QuickBooks are created in the workstation. It get uploaded into the server. You can upload it by the knife utility. You can upload it. So that these are the advanced topics. But just understand that these QuickBooks would be updated into the server, and whenever the client wants, the client can pull the QuickBooks from the server and run it on the Chef node with Chef client. So Chef client is the actual utility which will run the infrastructure code on the machines which are managed by the Chef, or I would rather say Chef clients. So hope you have understood the architecture. I'll just repeat it once more. QuickBooks, after creation of QuickBooks in the workstation, will be updated, will be uploaded into the Chef server, and from Chef server, the Chef client picks it up from the Chef server and run the QuickBooks with the help of Chef client utility on the Chef client. So this is the basic structure of Chef. So now we have only concentrated on the Chef workstation for this session, and in this Chef workstation we used Chef apply utility to run our infrastructure code. So let's just create a cookbook and create or run an Nginx server in this particular cloud instance. So there is a directory structure that is required for generating the cookbooks, and if the cookbooks are kept in that directory structure, then only that cookbooks get uploaded into Chef server. So that path you can get it from the ops code. This is the git path. So this will have the directory structure. So if you go to the terminal and paste it here, I think it has timed out. So let me just close this terminal and go to another terminal, and I'll increase the size. CD documents Chef WS. Now I'm going to use this command to connect to the AWS instance. Okay, now I'm going to where is the Chef examples? Okay, let it be. So here I'm going to use the git path. So where is the git path? So here I'm going to use, copy this one, go to this path and clone it. So you will find something like Chef repo here. So I'll just clear it and show it once again. Chef repo. So ideally we should have a directory structure like cd chef repo, if you go ls, you will find a folder called cookbooks. So I'll go to cd cookbooks, and this is where you need to create all your cookbooks. If the cookbooks are present only in this path, then only it gets uploaded into the Chef server using the knife utility. So here I can use the command chef generate cookbook. So what is the server that we are going to run in this demo? That is the Nginx server, which is a reverse POSI server. So I'm going to create an Nginx cookbook. So I think I have to give the sudo command. So let me just go back and edit this command with sudo. Okay, now it will be asked, so I will accept the license. Yes, now if I go here, I'll find that I have a cookbook called as Nginx. So this is how the cookbooks are getting created. Now before going in there, let me just find out if the Nginx server is running in your system. So status Nginx. If it is not running, we have to Nginx service is not found. So now I'm going to write the infrastructure code to install the Nginx package and run the Nginx service. So I'll go to the cd Nginx. So here also you will find a directory structure with many directories. Only thing you have to consider now is the recipes directory. So the recipes directory will have all the recipes related to the Nginx cookbook. And by default you will have the default.rb file. This is created automatically when you run chef generate cookbook Nginx. So I will use the default recipe file itself. I am going to default.rb and I am going to write the code to install Nginx package. So here I am going to install package. So this is the another resource available in chef code. So I am going to install Nginx package, do, and what is the action I need to perform? I need to perform install. And now I need to start the service Nginx. Let's do action. I'm going to start Nginx service. Start end. So I will save this one. I hope I didn't give the, so let me just copy this one, copy, and then I didn't give the sudo command, so I'll just replace it with the sudo vim default.rb. Okay, now escape I, escape O, it's escape I. I'll just paste this code and now WQ. Okay, now let me just run this. So here I'm having the default.rb file, so I will just use the command sudo chef apply default.rb. It will take some time. So now see, using the apt package manager, Nginx package is getting installed, and in the next step it will start the Nginx service. So here service Nginx action start. Now if I go and check system ctl status Nginx, you will be able to see that it is active and running. So what we have actually done is we have created a cookbook and ran the cookbook for installation and running the Nginx service. But there is a slight difference how it is run in the real life. The difference is that you will not use the chef apply utility for the production. Actually, we will use the chef client utility, and these cookbooks will be uploaded into the chef server, and in the chef server we give something called as run list. So run list will have all the details about the recipes that needs to be run one after the other. So here using the chef apply you ran only single file, but in the normal case it won't be the same, you will have multiple files. So then we will use something called run list in the chef server to set the number of set the recipes, or set the recipes that need to be run in a particular format. So there is an option for you to set the run list, and depending on the run list, the cookbook will be run on the chef client using chef client utility. So hope you understood the basic structure of the chef. This is just the fundamentals, so it will just get you started with the chef code. Let's see if we have any questions. Let's go to our terminal. So we don't have any question as such. Now if there is any questions, just provide it in the chat window. I'll try to answer your questions. If there are any questions, please mention it in the chat window and I would be happy to answer it. So I will just recap what we have done. What we have seen is we went through the history of how infrastructure as a code came into picture. Then we understood what is chef. Chef is a tool that helps us to achieve infrastructure as a code, and it is also a well-known configuration management tool as well. We have other configuration management tools like Ansible, Puppet, SaltStack, etc. And chef is often preferred because of its ease with which we can work with high scale infrastructure, and also it is written in a developer point of view. So a person who is well versed in programming languages or in as such in programming, he can very well work with chef very easily. And then we did some hands-on examples with chef code. We went just created a hello.txt file with the required with relevant content inside it, and also we also ran an Nginx service after installation of Nginx package. So these are the two examples we did. So always keep in mind that these examples are very simple because this is just to get you started with the chef code, but in real life it would be something more complex in nature and something more bigger in nature. So then also we can use the same policies to run the chef code, and same syntaxes, everything would be the same. Only thing is that you have to change a little bit, maybe the coding part, to include the new big features. So if it is all, so let's end up the session. So that is all from me for this session. So if you have any queries or feedbacks, please contact us at info@cotralogics.com. We will be happy to answer your questions and queries, and also let us know the feedback about the session and how you felt during the session, and if any improvements you need, just inform us about that as well. Thank you all for attending this session.